CBS News security analyst and former FBI Assistant Director Ron Hosko is in Washington. And on the phone, Charlotte Observer reporter Katie Peralta. She's been following the story on the ground. Katie, I want to start with you. What went into the decision not to pursue charges in the Keith Scott shooting?
A whole lot, honestly. It was a thorough investigation by the State Bureau of Investigation, and then, when it went to the district attorney's office, they had brought on additional senior prosecutors who all came to a unanimous decision that the evidence was not sufficient enough to bring charges against Vincent. They concluded that he acted lawfully and perceived an imminent threat from Mr. Scott the day of the shooting, which was September 20th. And all of the evidence that they presented today was in an attempt to, justify that decision. And the press conference took much longer than we anticipated just because of all of the evidence that they provided for the case.
And Ron, there was a lengthy news conference in which the district attorney described the investigation into Keith Scott's death. But, Scott's family has consistently maintained he was not armed during the shooting. Did investigators follow protocol here?
I think they did, Rena. It sounded like the investigators and the prosecutor's office really went to great lengths to disprove false information that had been provided. Comments that we heard coming immediately after the shooting suggesting that Mr. Scott was unarmed, that he might have had a book with him. And they took every step to rebut those stories, to include DNA analysis, looking for fingerprints, looking at the totality of video evidence that might have been collected, analyzing all the statements from the witnesses, particularly the police officers, to come to this conclusion. And that is what the law expects and requires, that it's a look at the totality of circumstances through and to evaluate whether the actions of this police officer were objectively reasonable. And I think that inevitably here, that was the conclusion, and they came to the proper conclusion.
Katie, after events like this, there's almost a cycle. We see the unrest, we see the protests erupt. Specifically after the shooting went public, there were several protests in Charlotte. Any sense if people are expected to gather to protest today's decision?
Most definitely. First of all, at least in the media and a lot of officials who've been watching this did expect protests, and they also, they did expect that no charges would be brought against Vincent. So they had been planning accordingly. CMPD, I know, is staffing up. They've told officers to maybe expect to work 12-hour days today. I know they've pulled in additional resources. I'm not sure what uptown businesses are doing by way of closing early. I can't speak to that. But we are preparing for protests because, you heard it in the press conference, Marie said several times, we know that many in this community will still be upset by this decision, including, probably friends of Scott and people who knew him and people who, say that they want justice. And I think that we all hope that the protests will not get violent like they did before, but I have no idea what will happen. So we're preparing accordingly, yes.
And Ron, were the police officers' actions in that moment appropriate?
I think unquestionably so, and frankly, it's disappointing to hear talk about protest in a circumstance like this. We've seen other occasions across America where the officers did what they were expected to do. Unfortunately, what they have to do in this set of circumstances, this is not a spaghetti western where you're waiting for the other person with a gun to draw or to get their shot off at the police first. The police did, unfortunately, what they had to do in this set of circumstances, and I wish that protest time would be spent educating others and immunizing others against similar actions that put them in this sort of peril when the police are coming to encounter you. And that is to leave a weapon to the side, to go nowhere near it, and to respond to their commands in an appropriate manner that de-escalates the situation, doesn't make it worse.
CBS News security analyst Ron Hosko and Charlotte Observer reporter Katie Peralta. Thank you both.
Sure.
Thank you.